Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashfaq and in today's video we will build a complete CI/CD pipeline using Jenkins, Maven, Docker and the Elastic Kubernetes Services EKS. In our CI/CD pipeline, if developer makes any changes on the application repository on the GitHub, then it will trigger the CI job of the Jenkins, which will pull the code from the application repository and it will build and test the artifact using Maven. Then we will do the static code analysis of the artifact using SonarQube. Then we will build the Docker image and we will push that Docker image to the Docker Hub. After that, we will scan the Docker image using TriviScan. Here our CI job will end. Once our CI job has been completed, our CD job will automatically get trigger. And our CD job will first update the build number or the release number in the deployment YAML file on the Git OPS repository on the GitHub. And then Argo CD will pull the manifest file, updated manifest file from the GitHub repository and it will deploy the resources on the EKS cluster. And once our CD job is finished, it will send the notification or the Slack or it can send the email also. So let's start building our project. First thing is we need to create the Jenkins master virtual machine. On the AWS console, I will go to instances, launch instance. I will give the name Jenkins master. I will select OS as Ubuntu. AMI I will select which is free tier eligible. Instance type T2 micro. Key pair I will create new key pair. And hard disk I will select 15 GB. Launch instance. I will copy the public IP of the virtual machine and I will access it from my local system. I will select the key pair. I will first do the system update. I will open the hostname file and I will change the hostname to Jenkins master. I have changed the hostname of the virtual machine, so I will go ahead and reboot my system. System is rebooting. Meanwhile, I will go to AWS console. I will go to security group and I will add the inbound rule because Jenkins works on the port 8080. Reboot completed. I will reconnect to virtual machine. I will install the Java with this command. If I give the command java hyphen version, so this is the version of the Java which has been installed in my system. I will go to Jenkins documentation page and under the Ubuntu I will copy this weekly release and I will paste it here on my server to start the installation of Jenkins. This command will enable the Jenkins service to start at every boot. I will now give the command to start the Jenkins service and if I give the command system status Jenkins, so Jenkins is running in my server. Now I will again go to AWS console and create one new virtual machine called Jenkins agent. Name I will give Jenkins agent. I will select Ubuntu. I will select my key pair. Hard disk I will provide 15 GB. Launch instance. I will copy the public IP of the virtual machine and I will access it from my local system. I will do the system update. I will open the hostname file and I will change the hostname of this virtual machine to Jenkins agent. I have changed the hostname of this virtual machine, so I will have to reboot my system. Reboot completed. I will reconnect to my machine. I will go ahead and install the Java in my server. Java has been installed in my system. All the builds will happen on this server. So I will go ahead and install the Docker in this server with this command. I will give the full rights to my current user on the Docker with this command. So I have added my current user on the group Docker. So I will go ahead and reboot my system. Restart completed. I will reconnect to my machine and I will open the file SSH configuration file, and in this file I will make pub public key authentication yes, and I will uncomment this also. Authorize key file. I will save and close this file. I will go to Jenkins master and here also I will open the same file and I will uncomment the public key authentication and authorized key file. I will save and close this file also. I will reload the SSH service. On the agent also I will reload the SSH service. I will now go to Jenkins master node and here I will generate the SSH key with this command SSH-keygen. Okay, so key has been generated. I'm inside the /home/ubuntu. I will go to .ssh directory and inside this directory I'm having this public key and this is the private key. So I will open the public key and I will copy the complete content of this key file and I will go to Jenkins agent, and on the Jenkins agent I'm inside the slash ubuntu slash home slash ubuntu. I will go to dot ssh directory, and here I'm having authorized keys file. I will open this file, and I will paste the copied content here, and I will save this file. So if I open this file, inside the file I'm having the public key of the master node. I will now copy the public IP address of the Jenkins master, and I will open it with the port 8080. On the Jenkins master, I will open this file, and I will copy and paste this password here. Install suggested plugins. I will give the username cloud user. I will set the password. Save and continue. Save and finish. Start using Jenkins. I will go to manage Jenkins, and under system configurations I will go to nodes, built-in node, configure, and number of executors I will make 0, and I will save it. I will again go to manage Jenkins, nodes, new node. I will give the name Jenkins agent, permanent agent, create, number of executors I will make 2, remote root directory I will give slash home slash ubuntu, which is the home directory of the Ubuntu user on the agent server. Label I will give Jenkins agent usage. Use this node as much as possible. Launch method I will select launch agents via SSH. Host I will copy the private IP address of the agent and I will paste it here because both are in the same VPC. If they are not in same VPC, you will have to provide here the public IP address. Credentials, we don't have any credential. I will click on add Jenkins. Kind SSH username with private key. ID I will give here Jenkins agent. Description I will give Jenkins agent. Username Ubuntu. Private key enter directly. I will go to master node and this is the private key. I will copy the private key. I will click here on add and I will paste the private key here and I will click here on add. Under the credentials I will select the credentials which we have just created and host key verification strategy. I will select non-verifying verification strategy and I will click on save. So agent has been added to my Jenkins. I will go to my dashboard and I will create the new job. I will give the name as test pipeline. Okay. Pipeline script. I will select hello world, apply, save, and I will do the build now. So the build completed successfully on the agent, which means our connectivity between master node and the agent is successful. I will delete this test job. I will now install and configure the few plugins on the Jenkins. So I will go to manage Jenkins, plugins, available plugins, and I will search here Maven. I will select this plugin Maven integration and pipeline Maven integration, and I will also search here Eclipse and I will select this Eclipse Timurin installer and I will click on install. Okay, so installation completed. I will go to home and now I need to configure these plugins. So I will go to manage Jenkins tools, I will go to Maven installations, add Maven, name I will give Maven 3, and this name will be recalled in the pipeline script. I will tick here install automatically, apply and save. I will again go to tools, and this time I will go to JDK installations, add JDK, and name I will give Java 17. This name again will be recalled in the pipeline script. I will tick on install automatically. I will click here add installer, and I will select install from adaption.net, and in the drop down I will select the JDK version 17.0.5 plus 8. This is the version we will use for the JDK. Apply and save. I will now go ahead and add the GitHub credentials to the Jenkins. So I will go to Jenkins dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials under security, and here in the drop down I will click on add credentials. Username with password. Username I will give my username for the GitHub. Password I will paste here my personal access token. If you want to create the personal access token on the GitHub, go to settings, developer setting, personal access token, token classic, and you can generate the token here. ID I will give the GitHub. Description I will give GitHub. We will recall this ID in the pipeline script. I will click on create. Okay, so I will go to my GitHub account, and this is my repository. Sorry, I will go to my repository. This is my repository, register app. On this repository, I will create the Jenkins file. I will give the name Jenkins file, and I will start creating the pipeline script. So first of all, I will define my agent in the pipeline. So this is our agent name in the Jenkins agent, and then I will recall the tools which are actually the plugins which we have configured in the Jenkins. So first tool is Java 7, which is the name we have given in the previous step, and this is the name for the Maven plugin, Maven 3. Both we have defined in the on the Jenkins in the previous step. Okay, so we have defined our agent and we have recalled the tools. Now we will start creating the stages. So under the stage, we will define our first stage. So our first stage will actually clean up the workspace. We have given the name cleanup workspace. It will clean our workspace. Now I will go ahead and create our second stage, which would be checkout from SCM. So our second stage is checkout from SCM, and this is my repository register app, and this is the branch main, and this is the credential ID GitHub, which we have defined on the Jenkins dashboard. And the next stage we will add, which would be build application. build application with the command mvn clean package. And I will create the next stage, which will actually test our application. With this command mvn test. I will save this file. I will go to my Jenkins dashboard, new item. I will give the job name register app CI pipeline. OK. I will tick on discard old bill. Under the log rotation, max of bills to keep, I will type here 2. I will not set any bill trigger as of now. Under pipeline, I will select pipeline script from SCM, and I will give my repository name, repository URL, SCM git, and I will give the my GitHub repository. Credentials, I will select the GitHub credentials, branch, main, script path, Jenkins file, apply and save. I will now go ahead and click on build now. Okay, so job completed. Next task is to set up the SonarQube. So on the AWS console, I will go to launch instances. I will give the name SonarQube, Ubuntu, and instance type. I will select T3 medium. T2 micro is insufficient because we will be installing PostgreSQL and SonarQube in this VM. I will select my key pair, disk. I will select 15 GB, launch instance. I will copy the public IP of the virtual machine and I will access it from my local system. First of all, I will update the package repository. I will add the PostgreSQL repository. I will install the PostgreSQL PostgreSQL SQL has been installed. I will enable it. Now I will create the database for the SonarQube. I will set the password. You have to remember this password. Okay, so database for the SonarQube has been created. I will now go ahead and add the Adaptium repository. I will now go ahead and install the Java. So this is the version of the Java which has been installed. Now I need to do some Linux kernel tuning. So first of all, I will increase the limits. I will open this file and at the end of the file I will add these two lines. Now I will increase the mapped memory regions. So I will open this file and I will go to the end of this file and I will add this line. I will save and close this file. Okay, now I will go ahead and reboot my system. System is rebooting. Meanwhile, I will go to the virtual machine on the AWS console, and I will go to security groups, edit inbound rule, add rule, and I will allow the port 9000 because we will be accessing the Sonar Cube over the port 9000. Okay, reboot completed. I will reconnect to my server, and from here we will actually start the Sonar Cube installation. So first of all, I will download the packages. I will install the unzip in my system. I will now create the user and set the permission for that user. I will now update the SonarQube properties with the database credentials. So I will open one file, and in this file here Sonar JDBC username, I will uncomment and give the username as Sonar, and I will give the password which we have set, and here Sonar JDBC URL, I will provide. I will save and close this file. I will now go ahead and create the service for the SonarQube. So I will open this file and I will give the entries in this file. I will save and close this file. I will now start the SonarQube and I will enable the service. So SonarQube service is running in my system, and we can watch the log file and monitor the startup with this command. I will copy the public IP of the SonarQube server and I will access it on the browser with port 9000. So username is admin, password is also admin. We will have to set the new password. So I will give the old password, which is the admin, and I will set the new password. So here we have set up our SonarQube server. Next step is to integrate the SonarQube with the Jenkins. So on the SonarQube home page, I will go to my account, security. Under the generate tokens, I will give the name to the token Jenkins SonarQube token. Type, I will select global analysis token, expire in no expiration, and I will click on generate. Copy this token to your local system. Now using this token, I will create the credentials under the Jenkins. So on the Jenkins dashboard, I will go to manage Jenkins, credentials, add new credentials, kind. I will select secret text, and here I will paste our token which we have created just now, and ID I will give Jenkins SonarCube token. I will click on create. Okay, so token has been created in the Jenkins. Now I will install and configure the few plugins on the Jenkins. So I will go to manage Jenkins, plugins, available plugin, and I will search here Sonar. So I will select this one, SonarCube scanner and Sonar quality gates and the quality gates. I will click on install, and here I will tick restart Jenkins when installation is completed. So you can see here quality gates plugin and Sonar quality gates plugin has been installed, and scanner also installed in my system. You can ignore this warning because in the previous step we have given the database credentials in the plain text, so it is giving the warning. If you want to ignore this warning, just go to configure which of these warnings are shown, and here under the security warning untick these warnings, apply and save. I will now go ahead and add the SonarCube server to my Jenkins. I will go to manage Jenkins system, and here I will click on add SonarCube. Name I will give SonarCube server, and the URL I will provide private IP address of the SonarCube server. colon 9000. Server authentication token, I will select this Jenkins SonarCube token, which we had created using the SonarCube API token. Apply and save. I will now go ahead and add the SonarCube scanner in my Jenkins. So I will go to Manage Jenkins, Tools, and under the SonarCube scanner installations, I will click here on Add SonarCube scanner. Name I will provide SonarCube scanner. Install automatically. Apply and save. Now I need to add the stage for the SonarCube analysis in my pipeline script. So on my GitHub repository, I will go to edit the Jenkins file, and after the test application stage, I will add one more stage. Name name of the stage is SonarCube analysis. So this is the credential ID which we have given in the Jenkins SonarCube token. I will save this file. I will go to Jenkins job, and I will click on build now. Okay, so build successful, and the new stage has been added to our pipeline, which is the SonarCube analysis. If I go to SonarCube dashboard under the projects, you can see this is my build. I need to now create the SonarCube webhook. Without this webhook, your pipeline will fail. So on the SonarCube dashboard, I will go to administration, and under the configuration I will go to drop down and I will select webhooks. So as of now there is no webhook on my SonarCube dashboard. I will click here on create. I will give the name to the webhook SonarCube webhook, and I will provide the URL. This is the IP address of the Jenkins server. I will click on create. I will now go ahead and create the one more stage under my pipeline script for the quality gate. So I will go to my repository. I will open the Jenkins file. I will edit it, and I will add one more stage. And the name of the stage is quality gate. This is the step, and this is the credentials which we had defined for the SonarCube in the Jenkins. I will correct the indentation. I will save the file, and I will again go back to my job on the Jenkins, and I will click here on build now. So the job completed successfully, and the one more stage for the quality gate has been added to our pipeline. I will now go ahead and install the Docker related plugins in my Jenkins. So on the Jenkins dashboard, I will go to manage Jenkins, plugins, available plugins, and I will search here Docker. So I will select this plugin, Docker, Docker Commons, Docker Pipeline, Docker API, Docker Build Step, and CloudBees Docker Build and Push. So total 6 plugins I have selected. I will click on install and I will tick here restart Jenkins when installation completed. I will now add the Docker Hub credentials in my Jenkins. So I will go to manage Jenkins, credentials, add credentials, username with password. Username, I will provide my username of the Docker Hub. Password, I will provide the access token. You can go to account setting on the Docker Hub, security, and you can create here the access token. ID, I will give here Docker Hub create. I need to now define the variables in my pipeline script. So on my GitHub repository, I will open the Jenkins file. I will go to edit and here I will add the environment variables. So these are the environment variables which I will add here. So this would be my application name, register app pipeline, and this will be my release, and this is my Docker Hub username, and these are the credentials which we have just created for the Docker Hub. I will close the bracket. I will go ahead and add the one more stage for the build and push Docker image. and this stage will actually build the Docker image and it will push it to the Docker Hub. So name would be build and push Docker image. I will commit these changes to the file, and now if I go to Docker Hub, so this is my application name or image name. So if I go to my Docker Hub, uh, there is no image present with this name on my Docker Hub account. I will go to Jenkins dashboard. I will go to my job and I will click on build now. Okay, so job completed. If I go to Docker Hub and do the refresh here, so you can see the image has been pushed here a few seconds ago. I will now go ahead and add two more stages on my Jenkins pipeline script. The first stage would be Travis scan, which will actually scan our Docker Hub image. So on the GitHub repository, I will edit the Jenkins file and I will add the stage. So the stage name is Travis scan. It will scan the latest image on the Docker Hub with the name register app pipeline. This is my username of the Docker Hub. And I will add the one more stage with the name cleanup artifacts. which will actually clean the created artifacts from the workspace. So stage name is cleanup artifact. It will actually clean the previously created Docker image. I will save the Jenkins file. Next step is to create the EKS Bootstrap server. So on the AWS console, I will go to launch instances. I will give the name EKS Bootstrap server Ubuntu T2 Micro. I will select my key pair, launch. I will copy the public IP address and I will access it from my local system. I will first do the system update. I will open the hostname file and I will change the hostname of this machine to EKS Bootstrap server. I will go ahead and reboot my system. Reboot completed. I will reconnect. I will now go ahead and install the AWS CLI in this server. So I will give the command to download the AWS CLI. I will install the unzip with this command. I will unzip the downloaded AWS CLI package. I will run it. So this is the AWS CLI version installed in my system. I need to now download the I need to now install the kubectl in this server. So first of all, I will download the kubectl with this command. So kubectl is not having the executable permission. I will give it with this command. Now the kubectl is having executable permission. I will move the kubectl to /bin because all the executable files are present in the /bin. So this is the version of the kubectl which is installed in my server. You can ignore this warning because we are not connected to any Kubernetes cluster. I need to now install the ekctl in this server. So I will download the package in the temp folder with this command. I will go to tmp folder, and if I do the ll, so ekctl is already having the executable permissions here. So I will move the ekctl file from the /tmp to /bin with this command because all the executable files are present under the /bin. If I give the command ekctl version, so this is the version of the ekctl which has been installed in my server. I have to now create the IAM role which we will assign to EKS Bootstrap server. So on the AWS console, I will go to IAM roles, create role, AWS service, EC2. Next, I will give the administrator access. Next, I will give the name to the role, EKSCTL underscore role. Create role. Okay, so role has been created. I will go to EC2 instance of the Bootstrap server. Actions, security, modify IAM role, and here in the drop down I will select the role which we have just created. Update IAM role. I will now go ahead and create the EKS cluster. For that I will go to terminal of the Bootstrap server and I will give here the command to create the EKS cluster. This would be the name of my cluster. I will give the region in which I want to create my cluster. I will give the node type which is T2 small. I will give the node count which is 3 in my case. This EKS cluster creation will take some time. I will pause the recording here and I will resume once it is completed. EKS cluster creation completed. If I give the command kubectl get nodes, so these are 3 nodes in my cluster. Next task is Argo CD installation and configuration. So first of all, on the Bootstrap server, I will create the namespace for the Argo CD with this command kubectl create namespace Argo CD. Okay, so namespace for the Argo CD has been created. Let's apply the YAML configuration files to Argo CD. I will give the command for that. Now we can view the pods created in the Argo CD namespace. So I will give the command kubectl get pods namespace Argo CD. So these are the pods running inside the Argo CD namespace. To interact with the API server, we need to deploy the Argo CD CLI. So I will give the command to deploy the Argo CD CLI. I will give the executable permission. Now we need to expose the Argo CD server to the external world by creating the load balancer. So we will do the same with this command. So it is creating the load balancer in the background, which may take 3 to 5 minutes. If I give the command kubectl get service namespace Argo CD, so this is the load balancer created for the Argo CD. We can access the Argo CD cluster with this URL, but before that we need to extract the password for the Argo CD. So I will give the command to get the password. Now we need to decode it. So I will decode it with the command echo and the password base 64 hyphen hyphen decode. So this is the decoded password. I will copy the DNS name for the load balancer created for the Argo CD cluster. I will go to browser and I will browse it. I will give the username and I will give the password which we have decoded. Okay, so we have signed into our Argo CD cluster. I will go to user info, update password. I will give the current password. I will set the new password. I will confirm the password. Save new password. I will do the logout and I will log in with the new password. Next task is to add Argo our EKS cluster to the Argo CD. For that, first of all, we will have to log into Argo CD from the CLI. So I will give the command Argo CD login and I will provide the URL of the Argo CD cluster. Argo CD login and the name URL of the Argo CD cluster hyphen hyphen username admin. So this is my complete command. I will hit enter. I will provide the password which we have set for the Argo CD cluster on the browser. Okay, so login successfully. We have successfully logged into the Argo CD cluster over the CLI. If I go to Argo CD dashboard settings cluster, so under the Argo CD we have only one cluster as of now, which is the default cluster of the Argo CD. And if I give the command Argo CD cluster list, so it is the same cluster which I have shown you on the browser. Argo CD cluster. There is no other cluster added to Argo CD now. This is the default cluster of the Argo CD. Now I need to extract the name of my EKS cluster to give the command to add my EKS cluster to the Argo CD. So if I give this command kubectl config get context, it will show the details of my EKS cluster. So this is my EKS cluster. I will now give the command to add my EKS cluster to the Argo CD. So I will start the command Argo CD cluster add and the name of my EKS cluster I will copy from here and provide it here hyphen hyphen name. I will give the name to my EKS cluster which is easily identifiable under the Argo CD. So this is the name I am giving to my EKS cluster under the Argo CD. Virtual textbox hyphen EKS hyphen cluster. I will hit the enter here. Yes, it actually creates the role binding. If I give the command now Argo CD cluster list, So now I can see both the cluster. This is the default cluster of the Argo CD, and this is my EKS cluster which I have added to Argo CD just now. If I go to dashboard and do the refresh here, so you can see here both the cluster are available. Default cluster of the Argo CD and my EKS cluster added to Argo CD. This is my another repository on the GitHub which is having the manifest file for the Kubernetes. I need to now connect this repository to my Argo CD cluster. So I will go to Argo CD dashboard, and under the settings I will go to repositories, connect repo via HTTPS, type git project default. I will give the repository URL. I will give here my username for the GitHub, and under the password I will give my personal access token for the GitHub, and I will click on connect. So repository has been added to the Argo CD dashboard. So I have to now deploy the resources and application on my EKS cluster through the Argo CD. So one thing should be noted here, in my repository, if I go to deployment YAML file, the name and the version number of the image should match to my image and version number of the Docker Hub image. So on the Argo CD dashboard, I will go to new app. I will give the name register app, project name I will select default, sync policy I will select automatic. I will tick these two options, prune resources and self heal. And the repository I will select my GitHub repository which I had added in the previous step, and this repository contains the manifest file for the Kubernetes. Path I will select dot slash. Destination I will select my EKS cluster in the drop down. Namespace I will select default. It will deploy the resources on my EKS cluster in the default namespace. I will click on create. So the application has been created on my EKS cluster. On the terminal of the bootstrap server, if I give the command kubectl get pods, so these are the pods running in the default namespace of my EKS cluster. And to get the external DNS name for my application, I will give the command kubectl get svc, which will show the service details of the service created in the default namespace. So this is the external DNS name of the load balancer created for this application through the service manifest file. So I will copy this DNS name and I will browse it on the new tab with the port 8080, because my container is running on the port 8080. So this is the default home page of the Tomcat, and if I give the slash web app, so this is my application. Deployment is happening perfectly on the EKS cluster through the Argo CD. Now we need to automate this deployment process. So I will go to Jenkins dashboard and I will create the CD job now. I will give the name to the CD job pipeline. Okay, discard old bill, max of bill to keep I will give 2, and I will tick here this project is parameterized, and I will click on add parameter and I will select this string parameter. Name I will give image tag, because every time our CD job will change the image tag on the deployment manifest file on the GitHub repository. And then I will tick here on trigger builds remotely, and I will give the authentication token name git ops-token, and pipeline definition I will select pipeline script from SCM, and the SCM I will select git. I will give the repository git ops repository on my GitHub, which is having the manifest file for the Kubernetes. Credentials I will select GitHub credentials. Branch I will select here main, and then apply and save. Now I will go to my application repository on the GitHub, and I will open the Jenkins file, and actually I need to add one more stage on my Jenkins file, and the stage name would be trigger CD pipeline, and this stage will actually trigger the CD pipeline, and this would be the last stage of our pipeline script. So I will go to edit, and here I will add one more stage. Stage name is trigger CD pipeline, and in this command this is the parameter which we have given in the previous step, and this is actually the DNS name of my Jenkins server. So this name, DNS name for our Jenkins master node, and this is the CD job which we have just created, and this is the token which we have just provided in the Jenkins job. I will correct the indentation. I will save this file. In my Jenkins file, on the last stage, we have recalled this Jenkins API token. So we need to create this token, and we need to define it as the variable in the pipeline script. And in this stage, cloud user, this is my username on the Jenkins. So I will go to Jenkins dashboard, and under my username I will go to configure, and under API token I will click on add new token. I will give the name Jenkins API token and I will click on generate. And this is the token generated. And note one thing here, if I click on this button copy token, so message is coming copy only supported with a secure HTTPS connection, and we are not using the HTTPS, we are using the HTTP, so this button will not work. So I will copy the plain text and I will save it in my local system because it will not appear later. I will go to Jenkins dashboard. I will go to manage Jenkins, credentials, add credentials, kind. I will select secret text and here I will provide the secret. Sometimes here copy doesn't work, so I will type my secret here. ID I will give Jenkins API token. I will give the description and I will click on create. Okay, so API token has been added. Now I will go to my GitHub repository because I have to define this API token as the variable in my pipeline script. So I will go to my GitHub repository. I will open the Jenkins file. I will edit it and I will provide here one more variable, Jenkins API token. I will save it. Next task is to create the Jenkins file in our GitOps repository because our CD job has been configured with that repository and that repository is not having the Jenkins file, and our CD job has been configured as the declarative job which will pull the Jenkins file from the GitHub repository. So I will go to my GitOps repository which has the manifest file for the Kubernetes. I will create the new file in this repository. I have given the name Jenkins file. I will define my agent. So this is my Jenkins agent name, Jenkins agent. Then I will define the variables. So I'm giving the one environment variable, which is the app name, and our app name is register app pipeline. So we have defined the agent, and we have defined the variable. Now I will go ahead and create the stages. Okay, so I will create my first stage, which will be cleanup workspace, which will clean the workspace with this command. And then I will add another stage, checkout from SCM. So it will use the credential ID GitHub defined in the Jenkins, and this is my Git OPS repository, and the branch is main. So we have defined the two stages. Now I will define my another stage, which will actually update the deployment tags, but locally. and this is my deployment manifest file present in this repository. Once it has changed it has updated the tags in the deployment manifest file, it will push that changes to the GitHub repository, which would be done in the next stage. Push the change deployment file to Git. So in this stage, this is my username of the GitHub. This is my email ID, and it will push the locally changed deployment.yaml file to the remote repository. It will use the credentials defined in the Jenkins. The name is GitHub. This is my remote repository, and this is the branch. So it will push the changed file with this command to the remote repository, to the main branch. I will save this file. Everything has been set up. Now it's time to verify our CI/CD pipeline. Before I verify my CI/CD pipeline, I will set the trigger in my CI job. So I will go to my Jenkins CI job, configure. Under the build trigger, I will click here poll SCM. I will provide the schedule, which is actually every minute. It will monitor this repository every minute, and if there is any change on this repository, it will trigger the build job. Apply, save. I have opened the CI job and CD job on two different tabs, and I'm connected to my remote repository from my local system using git bash. And in my repository, I'm inside this folder. So I will open the index.jsp file, and here I will add new line. So I have added a new line which says happy learning. I will save this file. I will now push these changes to remote repository. Okay, so changes has been pushed, and my Jenkins CI job has been triggered automatically. Note one thing here, this is our build number 8. So CI job completed. If I go to CD job, so it has also triggered automatically upon the completion of CI job. So CD job completed successfully, and our build number was 8. If I go to Docker Hub and do the refresh here, so image has been pushed just now, and if I go to image is having the latest tag with the latest build number which is 8. If I go to my git ops repository and do the refresh here and open the deployment.yaml file, so in this file my image is having the latest tag which is the 8. And if I go to Argo CD and do the refresh here and go to app detail. So app is using the latest release, which is the 8. And if I go to pod, pod is also using the latest release. And if I go to my application and do the refresh here, so you can see here changes applied to our application also. We will test it once again. I will go to the repository. I will again open the index.jsp file, and this time I will add here see you again. I will save this file. I will push the changes to remote repository. If I go to CI job, it has triggered automatically upon the completion, upon the push on the GitHub repository. CI job completed successfully. If I go to CD job, it has automatically triggered upon the completion of CI job. CD job also completed successfully, and note the build number in our CI job, and the build number is 9. If I go to Docker Hub and do the refresh here, so image has been pushed just now. If I go to image, image is having the latest build number, which is the 9. If I go to Argo CD dashboard and do the refresh here and go to app details, so app is using the latest release, which is the 9. And if I go to pod, it is also using the latest release. And if I go to my application and do the refresh here, so changes has been applied to my application also. By this way, you can set up declarative CI/CD pipeline using Jenkins, Docker, Argo CD, and the EKS. Any change on the GitHub repository will trigger the CI job on the Jenkins, and once CI job is completed, CD job will be triggered automatically, and upon the completion of the CD job, we will have the changes applied onto our application. Hope you find this video helpful. You can fork my repository, create your own branch, and practice the complete project. During the practice, if you face any kind of difficulty, you can ask me in the comment section. I will definitely reply to your query. Follow me on the LinkedIn. I post multiple useful things frequently on the LinkedIn also. If you find this project helpful, then like the video. A lot of effort went behind this video, so do subscribe to my channel to encourage my work. Share this video with the friends and spread the knowledge. I look forward you to join me in the next video. Thank you.